The following is feedback on common problem patterns that Dr. Hutter and I observed while grading your exams. It will be recorded. Feel free to ask questions in chat. The chat is open. I am looking at it. After I go through the general feedback that's in front of you, I will stop recording and go through the exam question by question. This might be perceived as criticism. It might feel uncomfortable to hear. Instead of limiting potential valuable feedback that I am giving you, I will soften the blow by wearing a Cookie Monster costume. This is the third time that I've done this. So I'm slowly learning how to put it on. Are you not amused? A little hook. Yes, okay, glasses. General feedback. I love this thing. Okay, so general feedback. Copying and pasting from slides only works if you understand the slides. Very few concepts are fully explained in just one slide. And many of the images used to illustrate one point don't make sense or could even be misleading in other contexts. Please make sure you draw your answers holistically from the entire lecture. If you have a conclusion that you're drawing from a single slide, make sure that that conclusion is backed up by other slides in that lecture and supported. If you're finding contradictions between the slides, go ahead and Google image the concept. I highly recommend that. It will give you just a huge range of different figures of whatever you're trying to look at from various different angles at various different time points, and might help you contextualize what we're trying to discuss. Second thing, I can tell you're drawing from group developed content. That's great, love it. What? Oh, no, don't use Google the day of. This is while you're studying. So yeah, don't use Google while you're taking the test. But if while you're studying and doing practice exam questions, you hit a concept and you're like, oh, this slide says this, but this other slide says this, you can Google that. Where was I? I can tell you're drawing from group developed content, which is great, and not checking the sources of your classmates, which is bad. So I saw repeated usage of specific phrasing that was incorrect, and we'll go into detail about that further down. But what this means to me, looking at it, is that you've got a group of people who are sharing notes. And specifically, you've got a group of people where one person is sharing notes, and the other people are quite grateful for that helpful information. I encourage you in those groups to take those notes from that other person and say, thank you so much. And then look at the other resources that we have in the course and make sure that that content is correct. And reach back to the person who shared you incorrect information and say, hey, you seem confused about this thing. Let me help. These group dynamics are great, and they also go both ways. So support each other. And don't take information uncritically. All right, put information into a general context just to make sure it fits. Some of the descriptions of physical offense that I saw in your answers were not just incorrect, but impossible. Stuff where the navigational directions of things didn't make sense in three-dimensional space, or something going through what should be a solid object. That's, as you write your answers to these questions, read them over and ask yourself, would this description make sense if somebody else read it to me? Because if you could be confused by your own words, I definitely will be confused by your words. And the problem with that is that sometimes I'm reading this and I can't tell if you understand the material. You may very well understand the material, but I can't tell because the phrasing is convoluted. So please edit for clarity and brevity. That will help. And on the topic of clarity and brevity, too much information increases your risk of losing points for being wrong. If in your page-long description of the events preceding the context of the question, you briefly confuse your model organisms, you will lose a point. Don't do this. Just skip it. All the information in the answer to a question should directly address the question. And I think this might stem from confusion around what context is. I said use context. Context is communicated in single words or phrases like ventrally, or before gastrulation, or in the eye. These are context phrases. Context is not every event leading up to histogenesis. Okay, so that was the general feedback and the patterns that I was seeing. Are there any overall questions in this moment? I see none. I'm going to stop the recording. Oh, but before I do, I have to show off this costume because it's truly amazing. It's just a top, but it can do this.